Hello everybody, my name is Mattwise and this is my Fanalysis for today. So ever since video games have proven themselves to be marketable, there have been attempts to further cash in on them by putting them into film. However, more often than not, they tend to come across one small problem. They suck. Yes, whether it's the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Mortal Kombat, or the unfortunate amount of Uwe Boll films, movie adaptations of video games have something of an ongoing reputation for being pretty damn terrible. In fact, according to Wikipedia, there hasn't been a single movie adaptation in international releases that's ever managed to score higher than 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. The highest rated film is Final Fantasy Spirits Within with 44%. Following that is the Angry Birds movie, which somehow managed to make it to the #1 spot in the US box office. God, that is sad. So naturally this subject comes with a question that may hang over many gamers' heads, which is, why? What is it about video game movies that cause them to have such negative reception? For one reason or another, the transition from one media to another rarely seems to work out well for them. What is probably the most common complaint I've heard from gamers is how these movies stray away from their source material. This can be a fair enough complaint to make though. Can be. I mean, when working on an adaptation, you inevitably have to make some changes. This happens all the time when adapting books into film, and plenty of those have become both commercially and critically successful. What's important for an adaptation is that it builds itself up on the recognisable elements of its source material while managing to hold up as a standalone film. But even this may not be good enough for some fans, possibly because video games are already a visual medium. When it comes to adapting a novel, you're working from something that consists entirely of written word, which is about as abstract a representation of anything that you can get. So there is a lot more left open to the filmmaker's interpretations. But when you're working with video games, you already have a distinct visual style and references that you can work with. So when a film presents something that appears notably different to its original material, however slight, it's relatively understandable that some fans may take issue with those changes. Even so, I think it could be argued that there are some films that work around this better than others. For example, I believe Silent Hill was able to work around some of the elements of the game's stories, characters and settings that fans would recognise, but also made an effort to develop an identity of its own in a way that it wasn't too reliant on the audience having immediate knowledge of the original source material. Now I know there are some fans who don't like this movie for what it is, but at least you could get the sense of it being more of a fan film than other movie adaptations, especially with the attention to detail they put into recreating some of the scenes from the original games. Too bad Silent Hill Revelations came along and turned the original movie from a slightly incoherent mess to a completely incoherent one. So like I said before, I think there are plenty of instances with adaptations where changes have to be made. But then there are those films where the changes they make are just baffling. Let's just take a look at Alone in the Dark being one of the most infamous examples of these, even being listed as one of the worst films of all time. How did Uwe Boll take what was basically a haunted house story and turn it into an action film with aliens and a heavy metal soundtrack? I mean, the creatures are even referred to in the film as Xenos, as in short for xenomorphs. I don't even have a joke for that, that's just dumb. And then there's the Super Mario Bros. Movie. What the hell was that even supposed to be? I mean, sure, the original games lacked any story, as did plenty of other games at the time. But how did someone take such a bright and colourful franchise with all its surreal childlike charm and decide that what it needed to fill in the gaps was a dark, gritty and violent cyberpunk setting? Actually, now that I think about it, the movie was basically someone's alternate universe fanfic being given a $48 million budget. And if that doesn't sound crazy enough for you, that amount is now worth around $80 million. And we all know how well that went. I think the biggest problem these movie adaptations have, especially with the earlier films, is that the main reason studios make them in the first place is because the games they are adapting are popular at the time, not because they necessarily believe they make great films. And if you couple that with these movies having a reputation for doing poorly, not only critically but financially as well, then the studios become quite hesitant to give them the budget that might actually be necessary for them to get the right kind of creative talent. Somewhere down the line, decisions are made that cause these films to struggle, either as adaptations, as standalone films, or maybe even both. So while video games themselves have come a long way since their beginnings, movie adaptations still seem to be struggling to make any real progress. Despite that though, I've seen a fair amount of excitement over the Assassin's Creed trailer, so I guess there's still a fair few people eagerly waiting for that good video game movie. It seems as though Warcraft has been a big step in the right direction. Its director Duncan Jones is someone who played the original RTS games and appears to have an appreciation and understanding of the source material and its lore. He took on the difficult task of trying to make the movie appeal to a wider audience while also identifying the fans as a special group deserving of their own focus. While it hasn't been that well received by critics, plenty of other people seem to like it. Not only that, but between the time I spent writing the script for this video and began recording, Warcraft actually managed to work its way up to being the highest grossing video game adaptation so far. The truth is, how a movie is considered good or not is fairly subjective. Opinions are going to vary from person to person. However, I can't help but wonder whether a good video game movie is actually that important to us anymore. Video games have taken great strides in these past 20 years. They have a much bigger place in mainstream media nowadays, to the point that many of them, especially AAA titles, are the blockbusters of their own industry, selling millions worldwide. As a medium, video games have evolved in a way that they can develop gameplay and narrative and find the right balance between those two elements. Even a modern game that doesn't have much in terms of a story can have a cinematic quality to it, just as many games that focus heavily on story still rely on interaction from their audience. When they're done right, of course. I don't know if there are still that many people hung up on the idea of there being a Mass Effect movie, but I've been fairly skeptical about it for this exact reason. The main appeal to this series is how expansive the story and its universe feels. You're able to make that story more unique and experience for you by choosing which parts of the universe you explore, as well as how you interact with the characters, taking your time to know each of them, and even choosing who you can form an attachment to. Even if Mass Effect was made into a film, it's mostly going to appeal to the people who are already fans of the series. And let's be honest, you probably already know that you enjoyed the story more when you were playing through it rather than just watching it. Either way, our experiences in playing a game are best defined by, well, playing the game. It's our interaction with the medium that gives us the distinct connection we make with the stories, characters, and lore that they provide with us. For a lot of us, playing video games are a lot of fun. And despite the popularity of Let's Players, let's face it, watching someone else play the game for us just isn't as fun. I'm sure this might seem like a bit of a cop-out to say, but ultimately I don't think having a good video game movie should actually be that important to us anymore. But still, it doesn't hurt to be hopeful. Well, that was my Fanalysis for today, and until next time, take care. Hey everyone, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, feel free to subscribe, and you can check out all my other videos on the channel as well. Not only that, but you can follow me on Facebook to keep up to date with progress I'm making on any future videos, and you can follow me on Tumblr as well, where you can ask me any questions. Links to all those are in the description below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.